All right, we're live. We are our debut on the combined channel.
Yes.
So we made it. We ran all the way over from the other channel. Very excited. So for those of you that are looking at us for the first time, I'm Jeff Berckes. I'm joined by Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester is the editor over at Windy City Gridiron. I am a writer and podcaster. And what we do is with our podcast, Bear and Balance, is we like to do a little live stream. And eventually we're going to get into recording an actual podcast. And then if questions pop up as you're watching, ask them, throw them in the comments, and then we'll do a little Q&A afterwards. So we do a little soft intro here, but it might be good to just understand what this show is supposed to be all about. We come to you 24 hours or the next day after after a game and try to give a little bit more of a cooled down version of our reaction of what happened. I think that both of us have done the live show with Robert right after, right, where the emotions run high. You're either really down or you're really up from whatever happened in the game. You got a little heat that you're bringing one way or the other, and your reaction can be a little bit strong, right? And so this is you get an opportunity to go back, watch the game again, really kind of cool off and view it from a different perspective, different lens. So that's what this show is really all about. We'll be coming to you every day. Most days it'll be Mondays, right? A lot of Sunday games this year will be Mondays. I think it will be 6 o'clock Central Time. So it'll be pretty consistent that you'll see us doing this type of format. And then we have different categories that we'll get into, and we keep those categories the same, so you know what to expect. And we have a partner this year. We have a sponsor partner this year with Portillo's. So if you like beef, if you like cake shakes, anything in between on their menu, a good opportunity to get a $100 gift card for you to mention what your Portillo's player of the week is. We do that during our trench tribute because Lester and I are both former offensive linemen, so we always start in the trenches. So I miss anything, the general construct of this show?
No, it's good. You hit it all the key points there, and you mentioned the post game show. I actually did it last night because Robert is on a weekend long bender, bachelor party. So I had the post game, and that's a different energy, man. Because like the game just ends, I'm still kind of ramped up. I mean, Justin Fields. I mean, we'll talk about him in our show, but it's like, it's a different energy for that game. Doing this, we come at it a day later, we watch the game again, we listen to the press conference because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the game that we're not sure why this happened, and then they'll talk about it in the presser. We're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. We're in the heat of the moment of the post game. We're like, why would they do this? Oh, okay. The coach talked about it here, so that gives us a chance to kind of come back to the game and have a little more balanced approach. But it's and then you mentioned Portillo's. Oh my God, every week giving away $100 Portillo's gift card. That's beautiful.
I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, you're going to have to try to spend $100. I mean, you're going to get to go multiple times unless you've got a lot of friends or a big family, a big hungry family, right? I mean, it's a pretty sizable gift card. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
We've given away 2 already as well, and we mentioned it on this little 5-minute clip that we did on the last channel that both of the first 2 winners are living in California. So, Midwest, we got to step it up here. We're not going to filter out here. We're not going to filter out for region or anything, but, I'd like to see, a Midwesterner win one of these here soon. So make sure you're getting in. How you're going to be eligible is comment, let us know who your player of the week is, wherever you're finding this. If you're watching on Twitter, if you're on the webpage, if you're on YouTube, comment there, comment on the actual video on YouTube, not like within here as we go through this. But anything before we get started? You want to talk about just like general stuff before?
No, just we're excited to be over a new channel. Like obviously it's a much larger platform. I mean, we were growing pretty steadily on the old channel, so to speak. But man, we're excited, man. It's going to be the best of Roberts, the best of us. We're going to drag in a few more of our content creators from Windy City Gridiron. We're going to try and get more and more of the podcasts here, more and more video breakdowns, some X's and O stuff, some gambling stuff, some fantasy stuff. So it's a lot of content we have planned for this season. It's going to be fun, and we're excited to share it with all you guys.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll get into the podcast recording now, and we will get going here. I'm excited about these categories.
This is a good one today. Should be
All right.
fun.
Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears undefeated in the preseason. Justin Fields takes a torch to the Cleveland defense. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I mean, that game last night was really fun to watch as a fan. And, I had the post-game show. And I was talking about a little bit on our open here on the video channel, but I had the post-game show, so it's a different energy, a little more fired up. But man, the buzz, the Justin Fields buzz, is still within me, and I'm excited to see what happens here on September 11th when the Bears host the Niners.
Yeah, I said this morning, it's just because I've been so excited about recording this, and it's already the afternoon, but I'm just so excited about recording this since last night. I've been thinking about it nonstop, so I'm very excited to come to you now. The game is a preseason game. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal in the long run, okay? It's the third preseason game. The starters for the Bears played most of the first half, many of them. Some of those guys were out. Some of the guys for the Browns, the bigger names, didn't play at all. We understand that, okay? But we understand the context. But there was a lot of really good stuff that happened in this game, and I'm really excited to get into it here. And so our show always starts in the trenches. This year, that segment has been sponsored with our partners at Portillo's. So this is the Portillo's Trench Tribute that we're going to get into this week. If you would like an opportunity to win a $100 gift card, what you want to do is you want to comment where you get this information, who your Portillo's player of the week is. Doesn't have to be a player in the trenches. We don't give preference to that, but of course you get brownie points to Lester and I if you pick somebody along the line. So Lester, we'll start with you this week. Who do you want to highlight for your trench tribute?
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I don't think I've ever put him in this spot in the couple of years we've been doing this trench tribute. But I'm going to go with Sam Mustipher.
Oh,
yeah. It's just, the narrative around a player can change. A player can work on his craft. It happens. There are so many analysts and fans and people that talk and write about the Bears where if a guy is a guy, that's who he is forever for them. We saw it a lot with certain players. They have peaks and valleys. They have ups and downs. And, to be fair, Sam Mustipher has put the work in. He's got himself in better shape, which is just a different shape. I'm not saying he was in bad shape last year, but it was a different style. They wanted bigger, bodies up front. He added some weight. He cut some weight this year. He's leaner. He's a little quicker. And I just think if you look at his play, he's had a pretty good preseason. Not perfect, not clean. There were some issues the first few weeks, but I went back and rewatched them. I thought he looked good on my first watch. So on my second watch, I like to see if I validate what I originally saw. And it was pretty good. I actually graded his play. I had him down for 29 snaps. And in those 29, and my grading system is plus minus. You do your job, you get a plus. You don't, you get a minus. I don't believe in style points. This is the offensive line. You know what I mean? I don't care how you do it. If you get your job done, that's a plus in my book. So 29 snaps plus 25 minus 4, it's 86.2%. Solid game for him. There was a lot of times where his intelligence comes through, coming off the double teams. Some stuff in pass pro, he was picking up stunts. You saw him kind of, leading his line up there as the center. And man, Sam Mustipher, I still rather see Lucas Patrick starting here, but I'm not as concerned as I was last season with Mustipher as the center. If they got to get by a few games, good for him. Plus, this was an even front from the Browns. They don't really have a big nose tackle on him the whole game, so he didn't have that to contend with. But the different challenges when you're playing against an even front, stunts come from different places. So I thought it was a pretty nice job from Sam Mustipher this week.
Yeah, is that kind of the ideal position for a guy like him where you change the scheme, like from what you say, where they emphasize maybe bigger bodies and more power scheme now to more of a zone scheme, and the defensive front doesn't put one of those giant beef eaters in the middle that would eat him up. I mean, but you're right. I think that he's taken to coaching. He's taken to the new regime. He's done what they've asked him to. Like he was, starting off the year, he was playing a lot of guard, and then Patrick hurts his thumb, and they move him over and of course, Doug Kramer also got hurt, right?
Yeah.
So their rookie, wasn't going to be part of the picture either, at least for the early going. So he slides back into center. And like you said, he does look better than he did last year. It could be the scheme, and it certainly could be just that one more year of maturation. And I also think that once the center is more comfortable and can handle himself a little more, that allows the guards to be more comfortable, right?
Yes.
And so again, we've talked about Cody Whitehair and not hearing his name very often, which we were hearing, last year. And my theory is, twofold. One, it could be an injury from Cody that we just didn't hear about, and two, it was that there just wasn't that comfort level next to Mustafa. Like he just didn't feel like he could come off his block early enough. Maybe that's changed now. Maybe that's Cody's looking better because he feels a little bit more comfortable with Sam. He feels more comfortable with the scheme. Both of those things can be true, and I think that just bodes well. Like you say, if Patrick can't make it back for week one, you don't feel as worried as we would have been without this new data that we have from the preseason from Sam Mustafa. I like that pick. I'm going to go right next to him, and I'm going to say Tevin Jenkins.
Nice.
Last week, a lot of people got pretty excited. A lot of people named Tevin Jenkins as their trench tribute last week because they were pretty proud, I think, of the effort that he put in, being thrown in at the guard spot without a lot of practice. And he comes in and he's going for it, right? And when I watched him, I was like, okay, he's just kind of pushing. He's not really looking like a guard yet. He's kind of looking like a tackle that's just trying to push guys out of the lane, right? Just trying to win with like a bench press. And he actually kind of got after it a little bit on a few plays. He latched on, which again, I said, once he figures out that as a guard, you can latch on and drive your guy and put him into the dirt, he's going to start having a lot more fun playing guard than he probably thinks. And I saw that a few times. And he got to the second level pretty well. There was one play where he had to get a linebacker, got to the second level, finished his block. He looked pretty good doing it. I'm really happy for Tevin Jenkins to answer the bell here, come in. The Bears really needed that right guard spot to be taken up by somebody. I understand it's not necessarily what he thought or he wanted coming into the year or where he envisioned himself when he was drafted, but it's a new regime. It's a new coaching staff. They've challenged him to take on this spot. He's now done so, and he sure looks like he's going to be starting this year at right guard.
How can he not? I mean, at this point, he's been the guy for the last few weeks. He's growing and improving. The very first drive, the entire front for the Bears had some issues. Part of that was Jenkins, but he's a guy that he settles in. As the game wears on, he settles in. That's how his whole season will be. It's going to take some weeks to get really acclimated to what he's doing there. We talked about it on last week's show. There's just a different style of set for the pass pro. The run game is the run game. You get locked on there. It's pretty much the same. But even there, though, the guys are coming at you differently. There's different angles. I'm excited for Tevin Jenkins this year as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be watching a lot of Tevin Jenkins tape this year. I have a feeling about that.
Oh, for sure. Real quick, before we move on to the next category, I want to just reiterate the Portillo's Trends Tribute. If you guys want a chance to win that $100 gift card, just comment wherever you're checking this out, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Comment to us with your Portillo's Trends Tribute. We'd like it to be the guys up front just because that's our brand, but we understand if it may not be there. And then for you guys that are podcast only, you guys listen to the show, send us an email at secondcitygridiron@gmail.com and tell us your Trends Tribute there, and we'll make sure we get you guys in that drawing too to win that $100 gift card.
And second is 2ND.
2ND.
Not spelled out.
Not spelled out, exactly.
2ND City Gridiron. So, nice. Yes, absolutely. Bring that in. Send it to us. Comment whatever we want to see. Who you guys have. So we're gonna move on to our tweet of the week. So again, Lester and I spend probably, arguably, too much time on Twitter, but there is some good stuff on the Twitter machine if you allow yourself to spend some time and try to curate your timeline. And there's a lot of good stuff that comes out on Twitter. There's a lot of good interaction, and sometimes we pull some good stuff into this show that I think highlights that. So what tweet did you highlight for this week?
So watching the game, there was a play where I'm not sure who it was. One of the Bears deflected the ball at the line of scrimmage, and the ball kind of trickled and fell to the ground, and another Bear saw it on the ground and he jumped on it. That's a mentality that this defense has now. So I tweeted out, I love seeing the Bears jumping the ball after it was batted down. And then Dan Bolin at Dan Bolin tweeted back at me, yes, every time, no matter who is in there, I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid on this coaching staff. I've seen discipline and effort all preseason. Excited to watch the core develop and then see the infusion of additional talent next offseason. And I think Dan hit it on nail on the head. This is a coaching thing. This is a philosophy thing. This is the entire Hits philosophy. It's something we saw as Bears fans back in the Lovie Smith, Rod Marinelli, that era. Balls in the ground. You never know. Pick it up, jump on it. And just seeing that in preseason, seeing it in training camp, awesome.
Yeah, I think you go back to the presser where George McCaskey fired the last regime, right?
And that's one of my favorite press conferences.
yeah. and one of the things he mentioned, like, well, what are you looking for in a new staff, right? And he talks about like grit and all this stuff, and then he mentions like, yeah, I'd basically like it if defensive players would touch offensive players when they're down, right? Like he basically called out Eddie Jackson, some other people that just didn't touch the player down on whatever game that was late in the year, and that stuff really bothers him, right? Like, I mean, to call that out specifically, clearly stuck in his craw, and I think that probably did lead him in this search for someone who is going to say those types of things, right? If you've ever done any hiring, you've got some buzzwords that you put into the job description and all that kind of stuff, and it helps if that candidate repeats some of those back to you. And I'm wondering if George really does see some of those grit and playing hard and being disciplined and really kind of being hallmarks of what he thinks Bears football is all about. And I'm just impressed with how disciplined they've been. Yeah, just how disciplined they've been. Yet they fly to the football, but yet they're doing it under control. They're doing it smart. If you have watched the preseason, it'd be hard for me to hear that you're not buying in to the coaching philosophy, because it's a very easy thing, I think, as a Bears fan to identify with. So I'm excited too. I'm highlighting our friend TJ Starman. That is his real name. Starman is his real name. So
awesome
he's
name.
at TJ Starman. And he says, I amended it a little bit because he was replying to the late hit that happened on Justin Fields and the two offensive linemen that came to basically, to his aid and in his defense. And he actually says also Ryan Griffin did, because Griffin wasn't getting credit for it. And he says, I really like Ryan Griffin from a locker room standpoint. We see him step in here and he's constantly name dropped by Kmet in interviews. And I thought that Ryan Griffin has actually had a sneaky good preseason. It's not someone that we haven't really spent any time talking about. So I wanted to highlight that tweet here, because this is just one of those veteran signings that a new GM makes that reflects what he sees as important to bring in to his new team, to set a culture, to set the tone for what he expects his players to be. And Griffin, by all accounts, he's been a veteran in the league for a long time. He's not going to catch 50 balls or anything like that, but he's going to come in. He's going to have a couple nice plays here and there. He's going to be able to block, but he's also there to set a good presence in the locker room and just to bring the attitude that Ryan Poles envisions this team should have. And there are a number of veteran signings that are like that, and we'll highlight those throughout the year when they pop up and they do good, solid professional football player things. But I thought last night that was Ryan Griffin's time to kind of show that. There was that moment there where he kind of came in, got the guy out of the pocket, and he's like, come on, man, what are you doing? And then later on in that drive, he catches a very nice touchdown pass. So, there's just this nice little highlight for Ryan Griffin that I want to get out there.
Another thing is the penalty on that drive was Griffin's penalty.
Sure.
And the Bears overcame that as an offense. And how many times in the last few years have we seen this team, something stupid like that happens and it implodes, it just piles on. But last night, here they are, here's the penalty fine, we're getting backed up. Let's just keep working, keep plugging away. And that's what they did. And then the fact that he capped it off with a touchdown, poetic justice right there.
Yeah, nice little corner route, right? He lines up in line, and then he just runs a real nice corner route that the scheme held the corner there, and he was able to beat the safety to the corner. It's a nice scheme, great ball, right? I mean, and nice route by Griffin, veteran presence there. Let's move to our stat of the week. We call this category the caught up in a numbers game. What did you come up with?
My number 0 this week, and that is the number of combined interceptions from the Bears quarterbacks the entire preseason. They threw no picks. Yeah, and they had 6 total touchdowns.
And think about how good that is when one of those quarterbacks is named Ryan Peterman.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman.
Sorry, even I got it wrong. All right, Nathan Peterman. Yes.
No one knows. No, yeah, it just shows how again, that's a philosophy thing. It's what they want to do, and so like I said, 0 picks, which is of course led the preseason, and then 6 total touchdowns from their quarterbacks, which tied for the most in preseason of all 32 teams in the NFL. And I'm going to mention the passer rating of all 3 combined quarterbacks. That's Simeon, Peterman, and Justin Fields, of course, because everyone knows pass rating. It's not the perfect stat, but they all know what it means. Those 3 quarterbacks in the preseason, a 105.4 passer rating, which is that's good. That's good. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I can't believe I messed up Peterman's first name, but I'm sure that he's not going to be around.
Hey, at least you're not calling the tailback the punter like I did last week.
That's just because you got Trenton Gill in the mind. My stat is 10, and that is the number of receivers that Justin Fields completed a ball to last night on his 14 completions. So obviously part of this is because you're in the preseason and you're playing a lot of players. But I think that part of what I'll say me, right? I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but part of what I get a little bit worried about is that Fields might lock in to a very skinny tree where he's really only throwing to Darnell Mooney and then maybe Cole Kmet as a secondary option. And you're forcing the ball to Mooney and you get into some bad habits that way because you don't feel good about who else is on the field. And again, preseason, there's a lot of moving parts and all that kind of stuff, but this scheme should get Justin to throw to the open player, not throw to the Darnell Mooney, right? Like and I think that's the difference. And I think that's going to be a positive in the long run for him. And I think that hitting 10 different receivers is really cool. If he can do 8 receivers a game in the regular season, that'll be really good as well for him. So I just thought that was a nice little reflection of what he was willing to throw the ball to a lot of different receivers last night. And I think that's reflected with the scheme.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a scheme thing. It's a philosophy. It's an offense. I mean, we saw Luke Getsy obviously come from the Packers scheme, and Devontae Adams, he dominated the target share. And we saw last year in Chicago, Darnell Mooney pretty much dominated the target share. So it's preseason. I want to see if this trend continues, but I think the way that we've kind of seen them work in preseason, we kind of saw them in training camp. Darnell Mooney's going to be their one. I mean, that's for sure. But I think the way they're scheming guys up, they're going to try and get other guys involved, just because that's how you run an effective offense in the NFL. And we're seeing that now with Luke Getsy. I think it's a nice change, and that's a good number right there, 10. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you listen to. I mean, there's a lot of NFL content out there, but one of the NFL podcasts that I listen to regularly is with Robert Mays on The Athletic. And Mays had Nate Tyson is a regular contributor there, and they talked about Luke Getsy, and they talked about the Bears, and they talked about what Getsy was bringing to this offense, Justin Fields. And there's a lot of shade being thrown even when they're not trying to throw it at the last guy, right? I mean, we're trying to move on too. We're trying to not throw it at the last guy, but he was just Tice was saying how impressed he was with Luke Getsy, with how he was running practice, how there was no fat in the practice, how everything was smart, how it was laid out, and how they were even stealing reps where they'd have a handoff, and instead of the quarterback just carrying out the fake, they would pitch the quarterback the ball, and the quarterback would roll out like it was a bootleg. So they were stealing reps on plays so that it wasn't just kind of wasted time. And I was just like, if a guy like Nate Tice, who's seen a lot of football, and it's not the only, this isn't, they're not creating that on their own. They're not the only team that are doing that, but they're doing smart things in practice, and they're running lean practices, and they're doing things that catch a guy like Nate Tice, who was a coach in the league, and whose dad obviously was a coach in the league, so he's seen a lot of football, is impressed with, and he's impressed with the system that he's putting Justin Fields in. That's pretty important, right? And they basically said the same thing that we've been trying to say, which is this is a system. This is a system that's built on football philosophy. And because of that, you're going to see a lot of looks, a lot of different plays out of the same look. Whereas the last regime was a collection of plays, and it can be easily scouted when you only run one or two things out of that look.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be setting the foundation, setting the fundamentals here for Justin Fields to then, you're building the floor. And once you have that floor established, the talent that Justin Fields has is going to take that ceiling to heights that Bears fans have never seen.
All this Justin Fields talk's a great segue to our next category, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's it's almost like I meant to do that. All right. So we always, because Justin Fields is so important, we always want to talk about Justin Fields and what we call the Fields Report. 14 of 16, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, added 2 carries for 11 yards. I believe both of those were first downs. I know one of them was a first down. And so smart running in the football. Obviously, he got that late hit on him as well. The 3 touchdowns, we already talked about the corner route to Ryan Griffin. He had a touchdown pass to Dante Pettis, who I think we could talk about at some point in this show. Pettis was lined up as the outside receiver, hit the top of his stem, faked the post route, meaning that he's lined up on the left side, hit the top of his stem, faked running to the right corner. So basically they call that a post route, and then juked back into an out or a corner. I think it was a corner route.
It was a real crisp, clean route by Pettis.
It was very nice, but he absolutely got the corner to bite. That corner took a big step, and that's why he was so open. Very nice, crafty move from Pettis, who again has a really nice pedigree. Just hasn't put it together at the pro level yet. Hopefully, he can contribute. And then the Cole Kmet touchdown, which looked like probably broken coverage, but nice play action boot, extends the play. He sees Cole Kmet just standing there by himself and delivers a strike. So a gorgeous half of football from Justin Fields. And I think it's exactly what everybody needed to see from Justin Fields as we go into the first game.
The national pundits were out on Twitter last night and today, and they were really praising Justin Fields' game. But I'm going to talk about his 3 games. His preseason, he was 23 for 30 in the preseason, 76.7% completion, 243 yards. He had a 8.1 yards per attempt, those 3 touchdowns, and his passer rating for the 3 games was a 133.1, which is, again, it's a nice pass rating, and he was sacked twice in the preseason. But I want to talk about that 8.1 yards per attempt really quick here. To give it a little perspective, yes, it's practice. We're talking about practice, but that 8.1 yards per attempt last season in the regular season, only 2 quarterbacks in the entire NFL had a better than an 8.1 yards per attempt. Justin Fields wants to push it downfield when he can, and we saw this last year from him. And the first few games, and even in training camp, there were some fans and some analysts that say, hey, he's kind of checking down a little too much. And I've always looked at that as a positive. He's taking what the defense gives him. Let's make the smart, easy throw here. And he was very accurate on the short stuff yesterday. So let's take the nice, easy throw. And then when it's there to drive the ball downfield, he'll do it because that's what he wants to do. So, man, Justin Fields, I was pretty fired up last night on the postgame show. Like I said, it's a different energy, but that buzz is still there, man, because that's what we want. We want to see can you imagine if Chicago has a good quarterback? We are going to be insufferable as a fan base if Chicago has a quarterback. Oh my God, it's going to be beautiful.
Well, let's play this out just for a second. Let's dream here. Dream here with me just for a minute, Lester. Justin Fields becomes the guy. Aaron Rodgers is about my age, right? He can't play football that much longer. He wants to go, out and do whatever the hallucinogen drugs he was doing. He's got his Percocet. He's got his Ayasaka. I don't even know how to say it. He's a weird dude, right? I don't know how much longer he's going to play. He got this big extension at the cost of everything else. I don't know. Jordan Love behind him, I'm not convinced, is a guy. I almost feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to play until they release Love into the pool, right? Like just to spite. Jared Goff, clearly not the guy in Detroit. Detroit might be a competitive team this year. They might play themselves out of a top pick for a quarterback because they've waited around. Jared Goff's not the guy, and Kirk Cousins is not the guy.
But he's just good enough to make the Vikings think he's the guy.
Yeah. But he's not the guy. And certainly Kellen Mond, as they learned this year, is not the guy, right? Yeah. So quickly, this division could be owned by Chicago if this works, if this breaks in the right direction.
Did you see Patty's tweet last night with her post-game article that she put up there?
What'd she say?
The Bears have officially taken the North here in the preseason, and now they just, they can't give it back.
Yeah, it was good wording too. It's like now it's just not giving it back. Yeah. I mean, that again, it's practice football and all that. It's a little early for that kind of talk, right? I know we're all very excited, but I think the sentiment is there for the foundation to be built in a strong way this year and to get there soon, right? I think that's what this season's all about. It's not about the win-loss. It's about setting that really strong foundation so that you can build something that's, truly impressive. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to let somebody pay the bills here. We'll be back right after that.
Well, someone in the comments said that the, Aaron Rodgers is old AF.
Oh,
but since you said that's your age, that means you're old AF too.
I would be for a football player,
but I'm much older than you, so it's all good.
Yeah, I would be for a football player. That's for dang sure. I don't have that in me anymore.
No,
I got one hit left in me.
One.
Let me just be really clear. I got one hit. I'm saving it. I got one hit left in me. All right, Lester, we're back. So let's talk about our favorite segment, the Three Bears. We identify someone who gets a hot bowl of porridge, someone who exceeded expectations, someone who gets a cold bowl of porridge, someone who just really needs a little bit of help. We don't want to call anybody out too much, but sometimes guys just don't have the best day. And then the just right. This is what we expect from that person. Nice game out of them, et cetera, et cetera. So who did you identify for the hot bowl of porridge?
This easily could have been Justin Fields. So
right.
We just talked about him a bit. So, but I'm going to go on defense. I'm going to go cornerback Devontae Harris.
Okay.
He led the Bears with 6 tackles. He had a forced fumble, a pass defense. He's number 16 at corner, which is a lot of times, we're not used to those team numbers at corner. But I remember when the Bears signed him in the offseason, I didn't think much of it. I'm like, okay, it's another a fairly younger veteran reclamation type project. He has 5 years in the league, 36, 37 appearances, like 9 starts through his journey. But I didn't think much of it. But I thought he's had a nice preseason, a nice strong finish here in his last game. I still think he's close to that bubble. We got to see how the whole thing plays out. Of course, the cut down day is Tuesday at 3:00 Chicago time. But I thought Harris did something, and whether he makes the Bears or not, I think he has some nice preseason film on tape where he may find another gig, or at the very least end up back on the practice squad for the Bears.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that secondary shakes out. There's a lot of pretty good performers. I think you have to give Ryan Poles some credit for rebuilding an area that definitely had some issues last year, right? Yeah. Because I've thought Lamar Jackson has looked pretty good, throughout the preseason. I thought he's probably done enough to secure a spot, but a lot of players. And again, number 16, you just hope that if he gets signed, that he gets a new number, because I don't know that I can handle a 16 defensive back. Maybe that's only for the preseason. I mean, are we allowing 16 for?
Yeah, that's the thing now. They've changed.
Can't do it.
I like the number change. It gives them more freedom to kind of express themselves. But it's just a weird, as a defensive back, it just takes some getting used to.
No, I don't like it. He should be in the 20s or 30s. Just saying. All right, so I'm going to give the hot bowls of porridge to the Justins. So Justin Fields deserves it. I'm not going to deny him this. Yeah. He absolutely deserves it. We just talked about it at length. We could talk the whole show about Justin Fields. Maybe we will one of these days. I also want to talk about Justin Jones. I don't think we've talked enough about him. He was sort of the backup plan to the failed signing from the premier free agency signing for Ryan Poles' first free agency. And Justin Jones was the backup plan. And he got a nice little contract to come in and play the 3 technique here in this defense. And I thought he played pretty well last night. Had a very nice run stop. I think he looks like a really good player and a really good fit in the scheme. And I think that he is going to play an incredibly important role in this defense. That seems pretty obvious by the scheme, but I think that Bears fans are going to like him. I think he's going to step in and he's going to play good football at an important role in the Eberflus defense. And again, I think he showed out last night, and I think that he deserves a little bit of dap.
I'm glad you mentioned him because when I had my rewatch today, I did see the nice tackle for loss, and then like as he was in there, he has pretty quick get off. He explodes out of his stance pretty quickly there. He's pretty active. He's a hustler. I mean, you can see why the Bears went out and got him as their backup plan. And then there was a play where he actually dropped into coverage, which I've always been a fan of zone blitz philosophy. I like that. I think it's great to confuse a quarterback. This wasn't a zone blitz. It was just basically the Bears rush 3. They kind of dropped him off. And our guy, Brandon Robinson, who we've had on the show on the channel several times, he coached defensive backs in college. And he mentioned that's just it's a Tampa 2 look where the middle linebacker kind of takes that deep shot, the deep middle third, and the defensive tackle kind of replaces him. Just a different look for a defense, and I like that. I think Justin Jones, that's a good call on your part.
Yeah, I think he's going to play an important role this year. I don't think we've talked about him much, right? And again, it's one of those veteran signings, and I think it got kind of washed away from the Ogunjobi stuff, right? And whatever that was, that's in the past. It didn't work out. It didn't happen. But you have to give Ryan Poles some credit for having a backup option ready. I don't think he necessarily had that ready for like the Ryan Bates saga, right? For that. But this he did have a backup plan. I think people are going to appreciate Jones. Cold bowl porridge for you. Who did you identify? It's tough when the first teamers are playing pretty well, but who did you identify?
Overall, I thought this guy played a pretty good game. But I'm going to go Riley Reef. He played some left tackle. Like I said, he was okay. His pass pro, there was one rep who was a little shaky, but he did his job. I probably would have gave him a plus if I was actually grading his film. But I'm giving him the cold because of that unnecessary roughness penalty. It was a nice 8 or 9 yard run by Khalil Herbert. The play was clearly over. He just kind of came in and kind of drove himself at a guy that was already on the ground. And I like the aggression, and maybe this is just him shaking off the rust because he has missed some time here. He's just getting back acclimated to what's going on in football. Maybe his timing is a little bit off. He was trying to make a play. Maybe he thought Herbert was still up, but like I said, it's ticky-tack just because of the one play to ding him, but I got to go that way. Plus, like you said, the Bears won. The first teamers all look great, so it was tough to find a guy I wanted to be critical of. So, but this time it's going to be Reef.
Yeah, I mean, I'm contractually obligated to not talk bad about a Hawkeye, so we'll move on.
I knew you were going to say something.
So I'm gonna, and again, this is a win. It's practice football. It's preseason. The starters played really well. What are we doing here, Jeff? Don't be so harsh. Maybe don't even give out a cold bowl porridge. And I've done that before. I've given it to like the announcers. I should honestly give the cold bowl porridge to NFL Plus. Because what are we doing here, guys? Like, I was in network. I live in Iowa. I'm in network for this game that's being played in Cleveland, but my local station isn't playing the game. So how am I in network there? Like, it's preseason. Just open it up. Just let us watch these games. What is this? Anyway, they deserve a cold bowl of porridge for whatever the heck this app is that they think that they've done such a good job with. I do have a player, Demontre Tuggle. Again, you're trying to make an impression. You're trying to make a good impression. He didn't have a lot of tape. He didn't have a lot of opportunities. He got stood up on a run, and he didn't protect the football, lost the fumble deep when you're trying to salt away a win. The Bears, again, it's preseason. Don't freak out. But that's bad, right? Like he did enough to kind of stay alive, but he stood up. He needs to just kind of bury that football. He's not going to break that tackle. He needs to go down. Instead, he held it out. Defender came in, peanut punched it out, and he lost the football, and that led to a touchdown. The 2-point conversion failed, so the Bears held on to a 21-20 win there. But it just, again, that's just a mistake that you can't have, and obviously he's going to be kicking himself because that's probably the last action that he's going to have as a Bear, because I imagine he's going to be an easy cut for Ryan Poles to make here.
Yeah, he may bounce back to the practice squad because the Bears don't really have much much at that position. Are pretty short there. The guys that they have are probably going to make the roster. Him and Evans kind of battling for a spot, but you usually want to have at least one guy in the practice squad that can carry the ball. That's a good pick, Tuggle. He the T in the hits philosophy stands for takeaways, but when it's from the offensive perspective, it's protecting the ball. So he didn't do that last night, and I'm sure he got talked to by the coaches, and it's a coaching point. He'll just he'll be better on that, and he's a young rookie. He'll get there.
Yeah, and if he didn't get talked to about it, that's an even worse thing.
Yeah,
because that means that they didn't. They're giving up on you. But all right, just right. I think you could go a few different places here. Who did you highlight?
Much like my Trent's tribute with Sam Mustipher was a first ever guy in that category. I don't think I've ever mentioned this guy in the just right category, and that's cornerback Kendall Vildor.
Okay.
Who 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defensed. I always figured he was a lock for the team based on his experience, his special teams ability, just because I saw who they brought in, but I didn't think he'd have a starting type role. And that's really what it looks like he is going to be here, because they like Kyler Gordon at nickel right now. You kind of can do both, but when he's in there, when Gordon's in there nickel, Vildor seems like the guy they're getting starting reps outside. Kendall Vildor, man. I mean, it's not a good scheme fit last year, what they were doing. Jonathan Wood, who writes for the Bears blog, did an article I talked about a few times on the show, where actually he broke down all their stats, whether they're in man or in zone. And Vildor was much better when he was playing zone last year. When he was in man, he was pitiful. But when he was playing in a zone coverage at the time, he was decent. And I think moving into the new scheme, I think it fits him better. He's a physical player. He likes things in front of him. He wants to see what's going on. He's not going to do much man-to-man stuff, which that's not what the defense asks you to do very often. So Kendall Vildor, if he plays just like this, does his job right, he's just right. I like it.
Yeah, and with with some of the injury struggles of some of the nickel guys early, there may be more opportunity for him to play outside as they flex Kyler Gordon into that nickel spot. That's why Gordon has played so much nickel throughout the preseason, is because they don't know that they have a guy that can step in and play that nickel spot. So makes sense. And again, here's a guy. That we all Collinsworth really just influences us. He came in as one of those, oh man, Kendall Vildor, I really like this, this pickup here. It's going to be fun to watch. I think, and then he got the opportunity and he didn't look very good.
Yeah.
Right. And so everybody was really excited at first about him, and then everybody kind of flushed him. He's garbage. I don't like him. I don't want any part of him. And okay, but you've got a new regime. You've got a new philosophy. You've got a new scheme that are coming in. They vision him in a different way. He has another year of growth. He has another opportunity to prove himself. And here he is actually doing a pretty good job, right? And so you have to be willing to change your mind as an analyst or as a fan when you're watching these guys and say, hey, these guys are growing, right? Like just because they may not have succeeded in the last scheme in the last environment does not mean that they're just out of football. They do have a skill set that can translate into different positions or different schemes. And so it's really good. It's really good to highlight him and some of these other players that are from the last regime that have an opportunity to try to be part of something here going forward. And Vildor has shown that he can do that. My guys, this is where I want to talk about Dante Pettis. I could have gone a couple different guys, but I'm gonna give Dante Pettis here 3 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. I think he's showing that he can be a contributor. Again, this is one of those guys that can be a secondary, tertiary option after you have the targets to Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. This is a professional pedigree wide receiver. People say, oh, they didn't surround Justin Fields with any talent. Dante Pettis has a good pedigree, right? I mean, N'Keal Harry has a good pedigree. He's hurt right now, right? But he attracted another NFL team to use a lot of capital to bring them onto his team in the draft, right? So yes, they're retreads. These are guys that didn't work out in other places, but Dante Pettis has real skills. He has a real skill set, and even if his ceiling is not a top 10 receiver, who cares? He can still be a role player. You can see that he can run a crisp route. You can see that he can bring value in special teams. You know, he does a pretty good job of being pretty sure-handed in the return game. And so I thought that he would make, this is one of those, like with Vildor with you, early on, I thought Pettis had the inside track to make the team. I think he's proven everything that he needed to in the preseason to make this roster.
Showing a special teams ability helps him, obviously. He's going to be the 5th or 6th receiver. We'll see how many receivers the Bears carry, but they're probably going to have to keep, if they believe in Harry, they're going to keep him on the 53, which means they're going to have to probably expose someone to waivers. But, you know, you can always have those deals made with certain guys that, hey, we're going to cut you now, you know, and if you make it through, we're going to bring you back because, you know, with Harry, he's going to go on IR immediately. So there'll be a couple guys like that they talk to, but I'm with you. And this is another reason why I never thought they should go out and sign another guy. Like they shouldn't make a trade for Mims with the Jets because they have already these types of guys in a roster.
Right.
Tajay Sharp, you know, Harry, who's hurt now. Pettis, you know, these guys that are trying to make a name for themselves again after failing, so to speak, at other places. So they already have enough of those guys in a roster. Let these guys battle. And we saw Sharp in the first game look pretty good. Pettis has been solid through the preseason. So it's not big time name guys around Justin Fields, but it's not like it's a bunch of like, you know, undrafted free agents. I mean, these guys are experienced NFL players and, you know, it's for 1 year anyway. You know, let's see what these guys have and what they do before the Bears decide to, you know, go ahead and spend big money on a receiver.
Yeah, they'll have the full complement of picks next year, and they'll have a lot of free agency dollars. They can go out and they can acquire a bigger name next year, but now's the opportunity to try to build that foundation like we've talked about. So, all right, well, that's it for this show. We'll get out of here in a second. And for those of you that are watching on video, stick around. We'll go through some Q&A here, but for the podcast, we'll get out of here. We're going to take a little bit of time off between now and the start. We get that week off. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be prepping all the stuff for the site. We're going to be prepping all the stuff for the video content, for the podcast channel, getting all of our ducks in a row. So you will see a schedule from us come out of what you can expect on a general lineup for every week. You'll see some new shows pop up. You'll see you know, some new features that we're going to have in video, some new articles that we're going to have on the site. We've got a lot planned. It's going to be a marathon. I know I'm already like stealing myself for this race that we're gonna start here in a couple weeks, but I am really excited. I think that we're building something really cool, and we have a lot of really cool people that we work with and a lot of cool content that we're getting ready to talk about. And I do think that this year is going to be a lot of fun if you come into it with the right mindset. The right mindset is we're building a foundation. The right mindset is not we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's not what this is. So come along with us, and we will explore this rebuild and this foundation building. Anything going on with you before we get the season started, Lester?
You know, Sam, I mean, we're going to take, as far as this show, we're taking the quick break. But, you know, after every game, we'll be back here giving out $100 gift card from Portillo the entire season. So we got, 17 more cards to go. We'll give one out after this show. Probably, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll make the draw. So, you know, you get a chance to jump in for that. But then after every game, man, $100, you know.
A lot of beef.
A lot of beef.
All right, well, we'll get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And until next time, bear down. All right. Well, we had a lot of comments. Hopefully it wasn't people arguing with the Lions guy again.
He wasn't in today, our Lions guy.
He hasn't gotten the message. He hasn't made the switch over.
I'll have to find him, and maybe I can send him an email, or maybe I'll find him on Twitter and tell him to say, hey, come on, we moved the channel. You have to come talk your Lions crap to us over there. So, wow, ridiculous.
The polar bear review with no hot takes, kind of like that. That's Derek. Actually, originally in the Bears Over Beers, we tried to come up with a little tagline, and it was kind of like that. We had that sort of thing. I'm sure it's out there. The first couple episodes, we were playing with a lot of stuff, but I think it was like, you know, cold takes and cold beer or something like that, you know. But yeah, I'm not a hot takey guy. Lester's not a hot takey guy. We like to try to keep things
balanced,
somewhat balanced, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go too far one way or the other. So that's what this show is really all about. And Adam is apparently from Illinois originally. Yeah, but he did win the first one. So congratulations. Send us a picture, Adam, of whatever you get. And Portillo's does deliver everywhere in the U.S. Now it would be like you'd have to cook it yourself, but they do deliver stuff to you.
Yeah.
So it's not like a DoorDash delivery where it's prepared, but they would send you stuff. So keep that in mind. If you do win, you can order. You might have to make some of it up yourself. So,
or if you win and you say, you know what, I'm just not into the beef, you can always just, hey guys, why don't you guys keep that and you guys enjoy a nice beef on me? You know, I'll do that for you, just for you guys.
Well, I think that if somebody did do that, we could. I mean, I could just send you another gift card, Lester. But what we could do is we could maybe put it in a pot and have like a training camp, outing where we paid for some beef and cake shakes or whatever at training camp after a practice or something. But
nice.
They do deliver, so I mean, it'd be worth getting it. Or hold it and then convince yourself and your family that, hey, like if we go to Chicago to a game, dinner's on me, right? Yeah. And then like that might offset some of the costs of driving or flying to Chicago. I don't know. Let's see what else. Chris is saying Cody Whitehair looks quicker and nimbler. Maybe, right? I don't know that he's changed his body shape or anything, but he looks more comfortable, is what I'll say that I've seen about Whitehair so far. He looks, and in practice, remember they had that vet day off on I think the first day you were there, my second day there, and he just looked comfortable. Like he just looked like he was like, just felt better than he had in the past. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
Cody Whitehair did the like if you're in the Chicago area, I think it's you can get it anywhere you go, but he did the Bears All Access with Joniak and Thayer on WSCR, and Cody Whitehair was talking about that vet day off. He said he didn't like it. He never had one before. He didn't know how to react when it came to him and said, hey, we're going to give you a vet day off. He said it just, what? I want to be out there with my guys. I practice every day. This is very strange for me. He took it, obviously, because, he understands at this point in his career, he's got to do this once in a while for his body. But he mentioned how it was strange. It was a weird experience. But he did say that it gave him a different perspective. He was able to kind of see the practice from a different lens. And he said he appreciated it. And I'm sure he'll get a few more here as his career wears on.
Yeah, I mean, I got one vet day off in soccer my senior year.
Soccer, look at you, man. Yeah. Quick and nimble feet.
Well, and honestly, to all of you aspiring young offensive linemen out there, if your feet aren't as good as they can be, think about going out for soccer, because actually it really helped my feet. I could tell but the next season that I was a much better offensive lineman after playing soccer for a year. I played forward, which I don't know if you know anything about soccer, but that's the goal. That's the goal scorer, and it's because I had a pretty good, I had a pretty good leg. I could kick the ball pretty well and on target. But like my mom talked about in the podcast, the Hopi and Den podcast series, I mean, I had no idea what I was doing, and I would just run at the defender, at the stopper, as they were called, right? And I would just run at him, but I would like see him out of my periphery, and I'd knock him over on purpose. But like my whole thing was to knock him over so that when I got the ball played to me, there'd be a smaller person that was on the ground, and I could turn around and I could shoot the ball. So yeah, I took an offensive lineman mentality into soccer. You could do it, guys.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, that's the way. If you're going to do it that way.
Yeah. I don't know what that name is. Adeptus.
It's a hell of a name, though.
If this is Jenkins' floor at a new position in the NFL, imagine him in 2 years. Monster. Yeah. I mean, you look at his athletic ability and his athletic scores, and you compare them to other guards coming out. The score sheet lights up green, right? Yeah. He doesn't. You take away the questions about not having long arms. I'm not saying he has short arms, but he doesn't have as long of arms as you might think. He does, to me, he does look like a really big guard, but there are big guards out there. And he's very strong, obviously. He needs refinement in his technique, but why not be a great guard, right? Like, we talked about that last time. You could be one of the best in the league. Why not do that? Those guys make plenty of money. So I think, yeah, if he's willing to take on that challenge and settle in there, I think that it could be a strength. I think it could be something that he embraces and could be a really good pick.
it's no shame in changing positions. You're a professional football player. I mean, you made it. I mean, that's in the long run, tackles tend to make a little more money, but like you said here, in a couple years, if he really focuses in and he's all in, and it seems like he's bought in, whatever issue he had early in camp, seems to be over it, and he's progressing at a nice pace here. I mean, he has Pro Bowl potential on the offensive line.
Sure. We didn't actually talk about Braxton Jones today. We've talked about him a lot.
We didn't at all.
What did you go back and did he pop off to you at all? There was a lot of chatter in some of our off record conversations from other people. I didn't have the like, oh no, issues or anything like that with him. I know that again, he's going to struggle at times. He's a rookie. And he's probably needs to add some weight in certain places in his body to be able to help anchor down a little bit against some of those bull rushes. But I'm not seeing any big issues with him. No. I mean, again, he's a rookie. He's not gonna play Joe Thomas level football or anything like that. But like, I still feel comfortable with him at left tackle.
He's going to struggle at times because all rookies struggle, all left tackles struggle. I mean, if you miss a block on a national televised game, you suck. But it's like, those other 48 snaps, I did my job. What's the problem here? So I think with Jones, he's going to have some issues. And there's going to be a couple moments where, as fans, we look at him and say, oh, my God, that was a horrible rep. He gives up a sack to Bosa or something happens. But if he's learning and growing, I think that's all we can expect as Bears fans. And I still see a lot of upside. I would not be shocked if the Bears decide to go with Riley Reif at left tackle. If they do make that change, I mean, they got 2 weeks now before week 1. If they get him up to speed in the offense, like I said, they kind of ramped him up a little bit with some injury stuff, but wouldn't shock me. But I would be fine if Jones was your day one left tackle.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cornelius has a comment here about how much better they are with good coaching. I think there's something to it that we're going to see all year, that they're going to come in prepared. They're going to be, we haven't seen that. Can they make halftime adjustments thing? That'll be something that we'll want to watch. Clear that the last guy didn't do that very well. Right? So, can they make halftime adjustments? That was something that didn't happen in the past. Are they going to continue this disciplined football into the year? All signs point to yes. That's going to, again, you're building a foundation, building a floor, like use whatever you want to talk about here. That's going to keep you in a lot of games. It's going to keep you from getting the lid blown off, but it's also going to keep you in a lot of games. And when you're maybe not as talented as another team, that's how you stay in games and steal some. And so a lot of people are talking about Bears being the worst team in the league.
Never happening.
I don't see it. I don't see it because of this approach. And they have some games on the schedule against teams that are projected to be pretty weak as well. I'm just not seeing it. And so if you're predicting the Bears to be 2-3 wins, and that's end up what happens, all right, I get it. Like, that's not how I saw it. Things happen, whatever. I don't think that's going to happen.
They seem more disciplined. There's some accountability there. And I actually wrote about this in my snap counts and stats article that went live today at Windy City Gridiron, about the penalties. They had in the 3 preseason games, they had 13 penalties. Their opponents were flagged 25 times. So, 13 penalties in 3 games, that's not a big deal at all. They had 5 in this last game. I think it was 3 last week or something like that. So, they've been a much more disciplined team, smarter team. Hits philosophy. There it is.
Yep, absolutely. Wow. You guys got a lot of great comments. I want to make sure I'm highlighting different people. Appreciate everybody being active over here. Maybe. I don't know. The sliding shot woke the dragon. I mean, it could have been. I don't ever want to see another thing like that again.
The entire offense came to his defense. It wasn't just Tevin Jenkins in Minnesota last year. It was Whitehair, Must for Griffin. It was, they all came up there. And then, I would not be surprised to see if there's some fines, because there were a couple, with especially Must for, I think, I'm not sure, is that a punch? Is it not a punch? Whatever it was a pretty decent shot with Mustapher. And, you want to see that. It's a mentality. And again, if Lucas Patrick was out there, he would have been in the mix too. I think there was a shot of him on the sideline where he was kind of fired up and yelling at the other team. And do not mess with the quarterback. As an offensive lineman, that's our guy, man. We protect him no matter what. if you get in his face, if you hit him late, we got to let you know about it. Just it sets a tone.
Yeah. Again, nothing could be starker than the two reactions, right? Where you had one player and then he gets chided for it by a veteran player that, get out of here. And then now it's like, Lucas Patrick, who's, in a cast, is trying to come on the field and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's a different mentality. This is not, as Jack Silverstein said on a related matter earlier, this is not your older sister's Bears. I don't really, it's like, I don't know.
Jack's
he said
awesome.
it's supposed to like not your dad's Bears or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Not your older sister's Bears. Anyway, this is not the last regime, right? There's going to be different. I think it's going to be a lot easier for a lot of people to buy into exactly what's going on. I do think Ryan Poles understands value of an O-line. I don't know that he's there yet, but I think it's going to be better than people think. And you got to give it a little bit of time. Some comments. Oh, wow. That's a surprise. I would not have expected number one Hawkeyes fan and number one Bears fan to call out Riley Reef there. That is impressive. I did not expect that. I thought
it's all synergy. We're all in the same wavelength, and if it's not me and you, it's me and your mom. That's beautiful.
I thought I wasn't allowed to say anything bad about Hawkeyes players, so I'll have to ask her about that later. What does that mean? There's also 6. Oh, no.
He's also number 16. There's another guillotine comment later. You'll see it. It's we went a whole episode without talking about Trenton Gill, the punter, and his beautiful nickname you gave him, the guillotine.
It's catching on a little bit. Like, again, these things take time, right? I got to keep rolling it down the hill here and see if other people pick it up. But I feel like it's starting to catch a little bit. I was hoping that Roger Sherman, who's, big punter supporter, would kind of catch it. I got to get Pat McAfee. I gotta somehow rope him into. If I get him to retweet it, it's a done deal.
Well, it's on social media. It's on Twitter, the guillotine. And I whenever I mention Trenton Gill now in my writing on the site, I always throw in the guillotine.
See, yeah, you're right. We did go a whole show without him. He punted well.
He did.
He punted well. So it's just, I also don't want to wear out the shtick too early in the season, right? I am excited about it. You're right. I'm excited that I've given a nickname that I think can catch on, but I don't want to wear out the shtick too early.
What's going to happen is one of these t-shirt companies are going to come out with a guillotine t-shirt, and we're going to be left. We're like, damn it, we missed our opportunity.
Yeah, we probably need to talk about t-shirts. I got some ideas, not just the guillotine. I got a couple ideas.
I like it.
So you need to tell me the t-shirt company that keeps talking to you about this. Why should tackles make more money than guards? I mean, as a former guard, I think that guards, should make more money. No, I'm just kidding. It's because there are fewer guys that are that size. Right? It's a smaller pool of players that can play tackle, that can play guard, just in general. I mean, that's the idea. Right. And you can't pay big money to every position. And so it is a little bit antiquated. I mean, it goes back to the Lawrence Taylor time where you start paying your left tackle more because you don't want Lawrence Taylor to kill your quarterback. There's a little bit of that, but I think it's also those giant human beings with the long wingspan that has those physical characteristics to be able to play out there. There are fewer of them than there are, big, strong guys that can play with leverage at guard.
I mean, it's just how it's how the league has been. Like you mentioned Lawrence Taylor. I mean, it's your best defensive linemen usually line up off the edge. Yes, you have your Aaron Donalds that are freaks of nature, but for the most part, your guys that are really getting after the quarterback are those guys outside. And yeah, the game has changed a little bit where a lot of teams look for those guys that can push the pocket. So that may change a bit where you do want more capable guards. We kind of saw some of that philosophy with the Bears years back with the Saints. They want to be strong in the middle and then build out from there. But that's just tradition. Tackles on average just get paid more. It is what it is. And I think you hit the nail on the head again. It's because it's a physical body type that just not everyone has. And you need those guys out there that have the quickness, the length to slow down those edge rushers. I mean, but I'm like you, man. Pay your best offensive lineman, whether he be center, guard, tackle. Let's get them all. Let's get them all paid. I'm all for it. Let's pay the big guys.
You got a great center. I can make an argument of how important that is and how important that's a force multiplier. I mean, I I don't know. I have a ton of opinions about offensive line if people want to hear them, right? And being lucky enough, I guess, to have taken some snaps in my short career at all 5 positions, I have like some opinions on what was easier for me and what how you play those different positions and the techniques and what's important. And I find it all really fascinating. But really, what it comes down to, if you're building an offensive line, in my opinion, you want 5 guys that can play.
Yeah.
And if you get 5 guys that can play, you can do better than you can with a team that has a stars and scrubs approach where they've got 2 all pros and 3 guys that would be sitting on the bench with any other team, right? Like I want 5 guys that can play, because then they'll gel together and they will become the sum of the parts will be better than the individuals, right? And that's I don't know. I love the concept of building offensive lines, and I keep I'm excited if they have the 5 for the future now, great. Like, and we'll see how that works. But I want to see what Ryan Poles does here the next couple of years, because it is interesting to me to see just how important that is. And you look at the history of the Bears, and a lot of people want to talk about linebackers. A lot of people want to talk about running backs. Both of those things are true. There are some great offensive linemen and offensive lines in Bears history that we don't talk enough about. And if we can build a great offensive line here, it's going to have sustained success for years to come.
What was that tweet by? It was a former offensive lineman. He's now an analyst. And he kind of clapped back at a
it's a Schlereth.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
That was great. I did not know where he was going with that.
Yeah, he was talking about what happened was one of the a show covers the game is they kind of took a shot at the old linemen, saying they're not skilled players. Just plug and play these guys. What's the big deal? And he took offense to that. I mean, he kind of took a while to get around to his point, but it's those offensive linemen. I mean, it's a skill. It's a different skill, but it's a skill nonetheless. And I thought that was pretty funny how he kind of clapped back and made sure he made a point to get after them.
Like at first, I felt like he was gonna. I mean, Mark Schlereth has a brain. I mean, he can come off pretty strong sometimes, and I didn't know where he was going, and I was like, "Oh, where are you treading here, buddy?" But he said something to the effect of like, offensive linemen have the most skill in the game. Like that is the most skill. And let me tell you why. You've heard about receivers that, don't have the skill, so they go over and they play corner. And you've heard about corners that maybe aren't skilled enough to go play safety. And you've heard about safeties that go down and play linebacker, and linebackers that play defensive end that play like, they get bigger or whatever. Like, they have to like plug them. And then you've heard about defensive linemen that come over and play offensive line. There's nowhere else that an offensive lineman can go. You go to the stands, like, because we're the least athletic guys on the field. So and we're expected to win 100% of the plays. So for that to be true, to be playing against guys that are far superior athletically than you every play, and for you to have the expectation to go 100%, we by definition are the most skilled players on the field. And I was like, that is awesome. Beautiful, that is the most interesting way to talk about it that I've ever thought about. But it in a lot of ways is true. There is an unrealistic expectation for offensive linemen. They only get talked about when they make mistakes, right? For the most part, or they make like a Quentin Nelson type of play. I mean, I think some broadcasters are a little better than others. They'll highlight offensive line from time to time. Never is not the right term there. But I like that. I like that idea that, actually, a lot of guys are more athletic in different parts of the field, but yet offensive linemen are held to this really high standard. So the only way you can make that argument is that there's a ton of skill that goes into it. So
it makes sense. I want to spotlight a Cloudy asked any upsets to make the 53, and I want to talk about Tevin Coley. We haven't talked about him much. He was my trench tribute a couple of weeks back. He keeps flashing on film. He's got some pressures from the interior there. I forget how many teams he's been on in his career, but he just keeps plugging away, man. This guy is he just wants to make a roster, and I think he's still on the bubble. But if there's a guy that I think could be an upset pick, I think that's the guy right there.
Yeah, I don't really have any. I mean, I feel like I made my picks when I was at camp.
Yeah,
and was kind of like, I think Lamar Jackson will make it. And at the time, that kind of felt like a out there thing, and then it looks like it's going to happen. So I don't really. I like your Coley pick, but other than that, I don't really have
Sam Kamara's flashed a little bit off the edge.
It's definitely the defensive guys. The offensive guys, I didn't see anybody that kind of came from, it's not like Chris Fink's going to make the roster, right? No. It's not like there's anybody that's like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that to happen. Offense feels pretty obvious.
We talked about Pettis a little bit, who's a bubble guy.
But again, I made that call when I was at camp, right? So it doesn't feel like a surprise to me. And again, he kind of comes in with some pedigree. So I don't know. I'm not on the offensive side. I don't think there's going to be any surprises.
I think there still could be a guy they go get, once teams cut down. It's possible, but it's going to be interesting to see how the roster is constructed. And, as Ryan Poles going to go through those waivers and try and find a guy that can come in. And I like it that there's a week between. It's the second time they've done it. This is probably going to be the way they go moving forward, unless they do an 18-game season at some point, which,
they will.
They will. We all know it's coming. But I like the bye week, so to speak. Gives your team a chance to reset. Some guys that maybe dinged up. And the Bears, they got a couple guys, but I think they're going to go into the first game pretty healthy.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for the comments. This is really good stuff. We will be coming to you every week, giving away Portillo's beef. And we'll do this Q&A at the end of every session as well. And our out is going to be Monday Night Football. If the Bears are playing Sundays and we're going to do this on Mondays, we'll get you out before Monday Night Football. That's our promise. So come hang out with us before Monday Night Football starts. But until then, man, we're close. Season's almost here. We'll see you guys.